In today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about ways that we can make our work life easier. Creating a work-life balance in order to be able to do your job and still have that time that you have been longing for, which is the reason why you let your 9 to 5 go in the first place. As far as the work that I'm talking about, of course, doing field inspections when we come home and have to actually put the workload into the computer. Now, some of you have already been doing this, of course, but for the new people and those of you who are attempting to jump out into this type of work, you will want to make sure that you treat your time as special as you can, because it's the only thing you're going to have. You do not want to be running around doing all of this extra workload and then can't put in your work when you get home into the computer because you have been doing so much outside. You don't have time to get the main part of the work done, which is the files. Of course, we're not going to talk about apps and those that allow you to just upload images and you just answer 2 or 3 quick questions, and then when you submit it, it's done and there's nothing else for you to do when you get home. This is about contractual work and inspections that you do to when you get home. You actually have to upload your images into the computer, and there's a file through their system that you have to complete all of these paperwork and all of these forms. You guys know what I'm talking about if you're already doing it. Sometimes it can become overwhelming, and I know this to be the case because I've had a few people actually leave comments in the comment section about how they've been so overwhelmed with some work sometimes until they've had to actually let go of some contracts or tell them that I can't do too much more work because I'm so overwhelmed, it's just too much. As being an inspector, as being someone who is able to make your own schedule, you also need to be able to get to a point to where you can create some sort of work-life balance that is going to be suitable for you and it's going to make you happy, so that you're able to actually do the work and still enjoy your life when there are things that you want to do. So anyway, I decided that I would make up a few tips of what I actually started doing, what I was doing at first, so you guys can get a fresh inside look at the things that I was doing and how I decided to change things up. So when I first started out, of course, that mentality was stuck there as a 9 to 5 job. So even though I was doing my own work for myself, I still had that mentality. And that was work all day, rest at night, there's barely time for you, get up tomorrow, do it all over again, repeat, and more repeat. I had to get to a point where I had to say to myself, okay, Deidre, this is not why you got into doing this sort of work, so you need to figure this out, because right now, even though you're not stressed and there's not anyone on your back, there's no one chasing you, there's no monthly evaluations, there's none of that stuff going on, even though you have set yourself up to live a life to where there's no outside people stressing you out, while you stressing yourself out. Figure this out. So I had to. But what I was doing at first, I would work Monday through Friday, and I would set up as many appointments as I could without them overlapping each other. And some days, especially where I live, I'm not gonna say some days, all days where I live, there's traffic at all times of the day, and if you just can ride smoothly down some roads, you have gotten lucky. But for the most part, there's traffic. Well, in the evening times, there was horrible traffic, and I found myself sitting in traffic in worse spots than if I was coming from my 9 to 5 job. And it would take me until 5, 6 o'clock, sometimes 7 o'clock in the evening before I get in the house. Well, now, not only did I come home and I have all of this work, okay, hooray for me, I've done a lot of work. But guess what? My work is not complete. It's not even halfway done, because you see, the paperwork and information that you put in the computer is the major part of the workload, and it hadn't been done yet. So now I would walk in the house and I'd have 4 or 5 files that I have not done at all. Maybe I was able to do 2 or 3 of them while I was on the road in between time in my little quote unquote car office, but for the most part, the rest of them I had to bring home. So now I'm tired, okay, I have to eat, I'm trying to get a little exercise in, I'm trying to get my me time, okay? I got to take my bath and I got to get ready to go to bed, okay? So now I started to realize, Deidre, your days are more full now than they were when you were working a 9 to 5. You're going to have to figure this out before you burn out. So what I decided to do was cut back on my days first off. So instead of me working Monday through Friday, I knew I needed a day off, so I would take the extra day on Friday, which was actually the game plan from the start anyway, to at least start off where I would only be working a 4-day work week. Okay, well, it's done got a little lighter than that now, but that's a story for another video. I knew I needed to cut a day out, not just so that I can have a free day, not at this point, because at that point, I had too much work that I was putting in. So Friday needed to be an in-house day. So I decided to stop making appointments for Friday so that would be an extra day to help me on the information that I needed to put in at least on that Thursday that I couldn't complete. Well, it still didn't slow down the amount of work that I had coming in versus the amount of work that the appointments that I was setting for each day. I still was being overworked, okay, by me. I was being overworked by me, and I knew that I had to come up with some sort of way to figure this out. Imagine doing all of the inspections, and then when we get home and walk in the door, you cannot treat it as though your day is over, because your day is not over. You still have to put in the paperwork. So now you're going to sit down, and that right there takes some sort of, I can't even explain to you. You have to be determined when you come in the house after you've been out all day to sit down and discipline yourself enough to get that workload done. But there can be so much workload until you can't get it all done that day. So what are you going to do? You'll find yourself mentally so overwhelmed until before you know it, a couple of days done went by, and now you got all this buildup from all the days after that, and you haven't even put all of this workload in. So what do we do to ease this pain that we're suffering from of having to deal with so much work? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a plan. So I'm going to tell you what my plan was and how I figured out what I needed to do to make sure that I did not become overwhelmed, and so that my days off were actually my days off. Okay, there was no working and doing field inspection, nothing on my days off. Bear in mind now, I always have my earpiece in, because just because I've taken a day off don't mean that everybody else out here in this world has taken a day off. And you can believe that people are going to be calling. They're asking to schedule appointments. They're doing all of these things. If I go visit people, whatever I'm doing, I know, but I have my file with me for the ones that need appointments, and I keep my earpiece in my ear, so if someone calls, I won't miss setting up an appointment. Outside of that, when I got home, I needed to make sure that everything was done in a particular manner. So what I decided to do was that I had to figure out what I could do as part of my paperwork, especially when I get home and I'm tired, that it's going to make my job more easier if I go ahead and do it first. So I decided on the days that I was tired that I would make sure most definitely that the images were uploaded. Because when you're waiting on that download or that upload, I'm talking, it could just, you be like, oh my God, it's taking a minute and I have 4 or 5 more to do. So I would make sure that I get that all in motion as soon as I get in the house. So that way, while I'm pulling off these clothes I've had on all day, all of my pictures are uploading into the system. And then if I needed to go in and do any type of descriptions, I would go in and do descriptions. I get all of that done, and then that way I'd have them all done for each one of those files. So now if I still have time within my night and I feel like I want to continue to work, because you remember now we've been out all day, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the smallest one I can find or the easier ones, and I'm going to start putting them in. So I get up early every morning anyway. I've always been that person. So I'm up extremely early before time to be trying to get ready to go do any inspection. So I just make it a point to always just get up still to this day. So if I get up and in the morning there's still work that needs to be done, then once I get my coffee and I get myself together and I do whatever I do in the morning, I am going to go sit down and start my day. So my day starts before appointment time. I sit down at the computer and I continue to put in the work from what I did the day before. And I try to make sure everything is completed between the morning hour and the night before, so that when I put on my clothes and get ready to go for today's inspections, everything that I needed to have done for the day before is already complete. That way I don't worry about when I get home, oh, today I got 5. When I get home, I got still 2 from yesterday. Oh, I really got 7. Now that mental game starts to play with you. And when it starts to play with you, I'm telling you now, you'll be like, oh, I'm just not, So now you're out of the mood. Now you're getting to the point where you don't like what you're doing, because now you realize, I'm going to either need some help or something's going to have to change. We don't want to be cutting our contracts because we can't figure out a way to get the workload done. And I'm telling you, when you get started in the morning, especially if the night before you've already uploaded all of these images, you've already done all of the major things like do your sketching and all of that stuff, and all you got to do is actually type the information in. It's so much easier. You've rested, you are revived, your brain has gotten rest, you're ready to go, you've gotten a good night's sleep, at least I hope you do. And when you get up in the morning and sit down at that computer, all you got to do is type in all of the form information and submit it in. Especially if you had to do a sketch and it's a place that requires you to actually sketch, okay? Not sketch, sketch. If you've already done that, when you get up in the morning, it's just so much easier to keep that flow going. Excuse me. So I started doing it that way, and that way I know that I'll be able to complete all of my work. Now bear in mind, if I come home and I've had a couple of easy files and I know that I can just go ahead and knock these out, get down in it, like I do a deep dive into it and I knock it out. But for those days that you feel like you've been doing too much, the last thing you want to do is spend all of your evening actually just sitting there doing this work after you've been working all day. Because when you go to calculating from the time you left home to go to your first appointment and the time you got back until the time you actually finished doing whatever work you're doing on your computer, I'm telling you, you look around and you've been working 8, 9, 10 hours. You're like, how did that even happen? No wonder I just don't feel like myself. I don't feel 100 today. Oh, I don't want to go. That's because you are doing too much work. You're overwhelming yourself and you are doing too much in a day. So I had to figure that thing out. The day that I do the most inspections will be on a Wednesday, because that's the middle of the week. That's my hump day. And I will make sure that if I'm going to do 5 or 6 inspections, it'll be on that day. I make sure that Wednesday is the day that I will allow myself to set those many appointments. Why? Because if someone does sweet talk me into a Thursday appointment, I may do 1 or 2 first thing Thursday morning, but for the most part, I'm free the rest of that Thursday. And that gives me 2 days of in-house to knock it out. But trust me, by at least the afternoon of Thursday, I have completed all of my work for the entire week. It's just the way that I do to make sure that I am not overwhelmed with work and I can actually get as much work done as I can. So let me tell you something, for you powerhouse people out there who are setting up appointments and going out for scheduled inspections where you have to actually talk to people, whether it's inside of houses or whether you're on commercial buildings, it doesn't matter. If you're setting up all of these appointments and you're doing 10, 12, 15, trying to do 20 a day, I don't know how you're doing it. You know what? God bless you. And he's blessing you well. Because I'm telling you, unless I have someone in the house who I can do a tag team with and say, here, tag you with, put the paperwork in. If I don't have nobody that I can do that with, trust me, I'm not doing that much in a day. That is too much. I would do those on houses when I was doing them where they didn't require an appointment, and I could just go and get the work done and come back and, upload images. Oh yeah, I was doing them, just sit there and while I watch TV and just put them all in. But appointments requires a little bit more legwork when you're inside of your computer. And if you're doing it, kudos to you, okay? Because I still am determined to make sure I have time for who? For Deidre, okay? Deidre has to have time for herself. And that's why I got in this, and I try to make sure that I have that, but at the same time, I still want to make my money. And I wanted to just throw that out there and see what do you guys actually do. And let's say, for example, when it comes to setting up appointments, when I set up appointments, sometimes I prefer to do email versus making calls, okay? Because if I make calls and they get on the phone, and sometimes you have people who are way long-winded than me. Okay, So you need to know that if they're as long-winded than me, then I'm not going to get much done if I start making all of these phone calls. I already have it in my head. I have a strategy before I go to bed. In the morning, I have a fresh stack of files that I need to call and see about setting up an appointment. And let's say I have 10 of them, and within that hour I need to be done with all 10, and by the end of that hour I might have done 3, because not only did I call and I left a voicemail, then you got people who are calling back, and all of these different things are occurring, and then other stuff is popping up that you was not expecting to happen, and you look around and you ain't done nothing that you said that you was going to do, but you were trying your hardest. But with emails, you can send those emails, and a lot of times that avoids all voicemails anyway. And most of the time, a lot of people will respond to emails, especially if they're running the company, and when they won't even respond to the voicemail, and then just wait on the response throughout the day. So what do you guys do that actually makes your work-life balance easier for you, so that you can get your work done, and so that you don't have to stress about making sure that you get work done and actually spend time with you and your family, different things that you want to do? Let me tell you something. If you're feeling overwhelmed, all you have to do is come up with some sort of strategy, whether it's making a spreadsheet, whatever you have to do, figure it out what you're doing. Am I overwhelmed? Is it too much workload? Let's talk about it. Talk about it in the comment section. Tell me what you've actually been doing. Let me know if you have figured out a way to fix things for yourself, and if you have not started receiving that type of workload, I do want to say, stay patient. Okay, believe that things are going to happen for yourself, but first off, make sure that you're putting out as much effort as you can to make those things happen. Okay, because things are not going to just fall at your doorstep. You're going to have to make some moves. Okay, he gives you the door, it's right there, he opened it, but if you don't step through it, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, make sure that you're doing your due diligence when it comes to trying to get as much work as you can, and then sit and be patient. You know how people are with these jobs. They're going to call you when they're ready to call you. And when they call you, before you look around, you're going to have so much coming in, you're not going to know what to do. But the ones that are already getting it, jot it down in the comment section. Let's talk about it. Until then, oh, and one more thing. I most definitely have already made up a sketching PDF. For those of you who need at least the basics of how to do a sketch, I did it in a PDF form, and it can be found on dmichelle.com. And I showed you detail for detail in the PDF of how to do one using Rapid Sketch, and it is at dmichelle.com. Thanks again, once again, like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy the rest of your day.